I call this public meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Welcome, everyone, to the January meeting. Thank you for the decorations around the room. We all appreciate it. Livens up the January meeting, Megan. We did have the first item on the agenda is oral speakers. Anybody wishing to address the board, and we do have 3 speakers who have signed up. So I'm going to share with you the I won't call them rules, the situation for tonight. Thank you for coming tonight to share your opinion. Before we start, a few rules. Okay, they are rules of order regarding the public comment portion of the meeting. According to board policy, each speaker has 5 minutes to speak. We'll have our board secretary, Donna Webb, keeping time tonight. She will hold up time cards showing the time you have remaining. The board may not ask or answer questions or make any comment regarding public comments not associated with posted agenda items. The board may respond with specific factual information or existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries on a posted agenda item. Also, please note that to comply with FERPA laws on student privacy, you may not mention a student by name. Additionally, according to board policy, you may not make derogatory comments about any individual staff member, either by name or title. Should you feel a need to file a complaint, you may do this through our formal grievance policy process outlined in board policy. Having said that, our first speaker is Don Elsom with TASB. Welcome, Don.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the time you put in sitting up there. I know this is Board Appreciation Month, and we definitely appreciate that. I get the pleasure of coming and representing TASB, Texas Association of School Boards, and also the Buy Board, which y'all are a member of, and it's a purchasing cooperative, for those of you who don't know, that allows you to purchase things quite a bit shorter and gives you a lot of benefit because you're able to not have to go through the RFP process. We do a lot of that for you, saves you time and money. And then because of the success of Buy Board and because we are a nonprofit organization that is here to serve you as the Board of Education, we rebate back a lot of money each year to our entities. Over $9 million this last year, which is one of our biggest years ever. And so I get the opportunity to come by and show you how well your purchasing department, your CFO, and what all good things they're doing, because not only are they following all the procurement laws, but they're also adding a pretty hefty chunk of money back into your district. And this year, TASB will be rebating Eagle Mountain Saginaw $80,468. So it's a very good number.
It's going to have to be a big deposit slip. Can we take a picture of that, maybe?
We zoomed real close on that number.
Yeah. It's a big number. You don't have to zoom in too close, but we do appreciate the partnership and look forward to continuing to do more work and provide more rebates.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Michael Moats. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Michael Moats, and I'm an alumni of Boswell High School, the class of 2014. I graduated from Tarleton State in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I completed the coursework for the Board Certified Assistant Behavior Analyst as a part of that at Central Methodist University. I have 3 years working as a behavior therapist in applied behavior analysis, and at present am working on my PhD at Fielding Graduate University in psychology. I'm here this evening because I have some concerns about the special education department, specifically some things that were talked about in December. At the board meeting, it was proposed that we isolate students who have higher number of behavioral problems at a school that would be built or was on campus of one of the other campuses here locally. I want to remind the board that under the IDEA Act, children are to be put in the least restrictive environment. Removing these kids without giving them the opportunity to adhere to standards, I believe, is not productive. These kiddos have been moved since July at the end of last school year 3 times. They started at, I know at least one kiddo who was at, has been to Eagle Mountain Elementary, High Country, and also Elkins Elementary, as a result of being moved around with the special education programs. The district has a high frequency of moving these children multiple times a year and introducing them to new environments where they learn new protocols that creates inconsistencies and maladaptive behaviors. You would expect a higher number of negative behaviors from students who are being moved around constantly. There are also students that are coming back to us from the Maracay school, which was talked about also. My understanding is that we are spending $40,000 a month, $10,000 on each student, and there are a total of 4 students at this school. That means that if you take a whole school year, you're spending close to $500,000 on 4 students. That to me seems pretty high. I have concerns about the special education leadership team. Dr. Parker stated at the December board meeting that efforts to result in an increase of safety for staff and students or a reduction in the intensity of behavior. We're talking about elementary level students who are between the ages of 4 years and 10 years old who cannot be controlled by staff members. I believe the reason you're seeing that an increase in these behaviors is because the district lacks consistency with the students. They're being moved around. There's not a consistent policy across the board, and they're learning new things that they would not ordinarily do. I have concerns about conflicts of interest between members of the staff who are running outside practices that are on the same level of the jobs they're doing. So if they had a patient at their outside practice that was also in the school district, that could create a conflict of interest because they are advising them as not only a member of the staff of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District, but also as a therapist or a behavior analyst. I have concerns about the hiring process for staff. The lack of supervision of the leadership team in the special education department here and prior to being employed by the school district. I'm not going to go into any specifics because of the rules, but what I will say is that there are some people who have been hired and employed after actions were taken at other school districts, one of the biggest lawsuits in the state in years. I have a problem with the way that this is being handled. There are issues with appropriately trained staff. Last year, a student had eloped, meaning he left the classroom, and there was a substitute teacher in that classroom. The teacher told another student, general education student, to follow that student. Both students ended up off campus halfway down the street before anyone was able to get them. That to me is insane, and it's neglect. It creates an issue where Child Protective Services could have been involved. Someone could have gotten hurt, hit by a car. That is a very big issue. I have issues with staff members bullying students by making comments like, you cannot hang out with other students because you are, quote, dangerous. That is a problem. I also want to understand how the special education department handles these programs with substitute teachers who come in who do not know the individual education plans that are in place for these students. I don't want to just come to you with a problem tonight, but I do have a couple recommendations. I do not believe that we need to stop the current programs that are being considered, but what I will say is I think we need to put them on pause. We need to look at considering things from the treatment teams at Maracay. We need to talk to the local staff at the school districts rather than the district making a unilateral decision to move these students. I also believe that the district should create an advisory board of members of the local schools, parents of special education students, members of the community, and district leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Our third speaker is Jennifer Jordan, resident of the district. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm going to read fast because this might be a little longer than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Jennifer Jordan. I'm the parent of 2 kids in the district, both of whom have disabilities. I'm also a former special education teacher, and I've worked with many students with autism who also had significant behavioral issues. But most importantly, as a mother, I'm a fierce advocate for my children, as well as for other people with disabilities. Our journey in this district has not been easy, especially in regard to my youngest son, who has a diagnosis of autism and exhibits some behavioral challenges. In fact, it has been quite a traumatic experience, not only for him, but also for our entire family. After watching the December board meeting, I am alarmed and perplexed at the direction the school district is planning on going in an attempt to educate and service students with more significant behavioral challenges. Michael's already addressed some of the legal and policy concerns, so I'm just going to focus on a small snippet of our personal story. This district has not proven that it is equipped or adequately trained to service students with significant behavioral issues. It is shameful what these students experience on a daily basis and what they are made to endure, if not physically, but emotionally. To this day, 1.5 years later, our family cannot drive past Eagle Mountain Elementary without my son responding negatively. During the fall of 2018, for 7 days, my son was allowed to climb on furniture, throw things, and blatantly disrespect staff and students without intervention while the staff gathered documentation and data about his behaviors. For 7 days and 32 pieces of paper, these behaviors occurred without a single notification to me about said behaviors. For 7 days, had I been aware, I could have helped and supported the school, but I wasn't given the opportunity. I was never told about any of these situations until I requested during an ARD meeting. Even then, staff didn't have the information on hand. Instead, they called for a break that lasted for over an hour while several members of the ARD committee gathered the information. For the sake of time, I will not go through all the details, but I'd be happy to send a copy to all of you. My concerns were addressed with the ARD committee as well with Special Education Director Laura Cantu, who was in attendance. After learning about the new team program, I decided to bring this to your attention because I'm not truly sure y'all understand what's happening in the district. After learning about these dangerous incidents, for the safety and protection of my son, I chose not to send him back to school. Once the ARD ended in disagreement, I withdrew him from school and placed him at a center where he received full-time ABA services from October 2018 through June 2019. The school and the district failed us. This past fall, after much deliberation, we returned back. Thankfully, we had some very invested staff members who ensured that the transition back was done smoothly and carefully. Although I did not agree with the placement in the ACES program, I agreed to it because staff guaranteed me the program had changed significantly since it was originally proposed. We had a beautiful transition. For the first time in years, my son enjoyed attending school. He was happy, he was learning, he was coping. At the beginning of October, this all changed. It was the perfect storm of a new ACES teacher, extending the school day by 1 hour and 40 minutes, as well as some personal issues. It was during this time that I discovered that a room called the evacuation room was being used as a cool-down area. When I asked, my son mentioned it in casual conversation. When I later asked how many times he had been, he replied multiple times. I asked how he got there. He said, sometimes I walk, sometimes they carry me. I asked him what was the room, and he told me nothing, what was in the room. No desk, no chairs, no anything. When I told him that it was concerning to me, why wasn't there at least a chair, he replied, do you really think it's safe for me to have chairs that I might throw? I set up a meeting to discuss this with the team and to find out about this evacuation room. In the meantime, we received a formal notice that he had been restrained by 2 paraprofessionals, and he had been taken to the evacuation room. I soon learned that one of the paraprofessionals wasn't even trained in proper restraint, which is a requirement if you're going to restrain a child. In fact, that classroom ACES teacher did not even receive formal training until November, after I questioned it. I'm still confused as to why staff who were assigned to a behavioral program weren't trained in proper restraint before working with these students. A few days later, my husband was called inside to pick him up after school. When he went inside, he was able to witness this evacuation room firsthand, where he found my son lying on the floor in an empty room, and he had been treated like an animal and allowed to tear the shelves off the wall because there was nothing in there to calm him. While 3 adults blocked him from leaving the room. And this is not hearsay, my husband saw it with his own eyes. While I understand this does not meet Texas's legal definition of a seclusion room, this is beyond atrocious and unacceptable. My husband, who is not easily upset, was very disturbed by what he witnessed. I have many other stories that I could tell you. Those are just some major ones. So my question to all of you is, why are we going to further isolate and exclude these children and families by placing them in a wing of a school where they will have no access to their peers or any social activities? Instead of opening an even more segregated environment that will help 6 to 10, max capacity 18, what are we doing with all the other children that still need help? Why do we need a separate location to implement advanced behavior management procedures? Special education is a service, not a place. How does a change of location ensure better services? Why aren't the students already receiving the best services available instead of being moved from school to school on a whim in an effort to fix the problem? Why do we need a separate location to set up a sensory room? It would be beautiful if every campus had a sensory or a calming room. It would be beneficial for every student. Why isn't there already a full-time BCBA at every campus that has a behavioral program? With the amount of money that's being spent to send students to the Marikey Autism School, the district could hire more qualified professionals. The district could invest in some amazing training opportunities. The district could focus on a more trauma-informed district with trauma-informed schools. I can appreciate a lower student-to-staff ratio. However, adding 5 paraprofessionals who don't have the education or training doesn't necessarily help the situation. I believe it's better to hire quality over quantity and provide the students with the tools they need to be successful. The majority of abuse and neglect occurs in segregated environments. Instead of helping these students, we are potentially sending them into a more dangerous environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing with us. Becky, that's got them all 3, right? Okay. Next in the agenda is the finance report. Mr. Shealy, who is in the audience.
Incognito tonight. First one is a budget status report, and we have we've entered a new world. We're living and waiting for TEA to give us decisions. A lot of those decisions are coming from the commissioner. I tell people I used to be fairly certain about some things. The sun was going to rise in the east, set in the west. Earth would continue to spin on its axis, and we're a fast growth district. Unfortunately, the commissioner determined that the last aspect is not correct. We are not a fast growth district. That has significant financial implications that we are now dealing with this year, but also looking at projecting next year, because based on the current formula, we will be fast growth next year. There's about $5 million associated with that. But then depending on what happens with the potential opening of new charter schools in the area, we could potentially fall off of that fast growth, depending also on what happens with our natural growth, the economy, and all those things. So we need to be very careful as we prepare this year's budget that we acknowledge those funds, but also make sure that we prepare going into the future to manage those funds and the fact that they may possibly not exist. We're still waiting for a number of final decisions. There have been some unfunded mandates that somehow came out of additional funding. Specifically, the pre-K funding has now turned into, I'm not even sure what to call it, Dana. There's a variety of programs that now have to be managed, but you still have to do the pre-K program, which is full day, but you don't get credit for those kids as full day students. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to do that. And Linda and Dana and Lisa are working on a plan for that. There are teacher incentives that we are looking at. Dana informed me today that the Dallas plan is now going before the Texas Supreme Court. So the plan that they have been touting as the example for the entire state to use is now subject to a lawsuit. And we need to gather information, but we do not need to make decisions. There's several other areas that we're waiting for. One of them is Comp Ed. We have a new thing called the census block. It determines what the percentage or what the increased percentage is going to be. Unfortunately, those census blocks, we were informed a week or two ago, they're going to be updated in, I believe, May. So exactly where they're going to be in May, we do not know. So trying to calculate what our actual funding is going to be is difficult, especially when there are conditions attached to that. All that to say is we're trying to manage through. We're trying to pull as much information. If we don't have final information, we're trying to pull base information and make sure that as the rulings and as that information comes, we're doing our best to implement those and manage through the budget.
So Jim, as the 1920 budget as we approved that we're working in right now, these things will be material changes, for lack of a better word? I mean, do we know yet?
They're
Because you're
what?
saying some of these things, you're not even know what they're gonna be.
There may be
until-
some decisions that we do not get until next summer, and yet they apply to this year.
Yeah, okay.
Now, some of them may not be significantly material, some of them we're taking our best guess on, and we may be correct. Some of them we held up implementation, which is probably a good thing. So, but it also has an impact as we prepare for next year. Because the information that we're trying to put together, we're gonna start bringing budget reports to you here in February, March, and April, starting with staffing reports, which is the biggest piece of the puzzle that we start putting together. There are, as we go, so we're basically in a mode of slow, steady, and study. We're not stopping anything, we're moving forward, we're looking at staffing, we're looking at potential revenue sources. And we're not gonna hold everything up, but we are trying to be as conservative and as consistent and as careful as we possibly can be. The one area that we know is robust right now is TAVs. And unfortunately, that won't help us on the M&O side as it used to, but it will give us a little more benefit on the INS side. We may be able to have a little more flexibility on that rate, and that may also allow us some flexibility in terms of projects that we move through or move over if the funding we get, the authorizations exceed the actual cost of the projects. We'll keep you apprised of those as we move forward. Anything we can accelerate usually has associated with it tremendous savings. As far as next year's budget goes, we are trying to do our projections. Revenue right now is difficult. We have staff going to training on a fairly regular basis. We have the demographic reports that we're looking at very carefully. And we're looking at, like I said, how that is going to translate into dollars. I think we're going to be okay next year. However, I also know that we have a tremendous number of needs that are going to make that okay maybe a little more tenuous. So starting in February, we will be bringing you some more concrete numbers. We'll be bringing you revenue. I think Debbie's going to start talking about staffing tonight. And I think we're going to start talking about projections for staffing next year. There also probably will be some programmatic issues that are going to be brought forward, as well including the expansion of existing programs as well as the need for new programs. So we're putting all that in. We'll weigh it all and we'll give it to you and try to keep it as simple and concise as possible from a financial standpoint.
You mentioned the 2% limitation on tax revenue growth in the report. So does that mean that we could take the revenue, if we know it's going to grow more than that, and we know what the cap's going to be on it, or is it that simple?
My biggest concern with that is defining the cap so that we don't have somebody file a complaint or have a reasonable objection. Based on our revenue being comprised of current year values, if taxable assessed value goes up, then state aid's going to drop. So if you cap it at 2%, your state aid's going to go up. So where we set the tax rate on the M&O side has little, if any, effect on what our overall revenue is. However, depending on how you set that revenue and depending on what your target is, if there is a drop-off in local effort, and we found this when we did the TRE, if we are not maintaining maximum effort, I do not know what the impact of that is on state aid. I'm working through that right now. So setting that 2% cap and setting the tax rate to meet that 2% cap is actually more critical from the standpoint of maintaining maximum state aid than it is an overall revenue figure.
Okay.
That make convoluted sense?
It made school finance sense.
If there are any more questions, otherwise, go on to the next
Go,
item?
yes, please go ahead, the audit update.
Yeah, we have Carl Deaton here from Hankins, Estep, Deaton, Ton, and Say. He's going to present the audit. I believe you have copies, electronic copies in your board book, and he's also going to hand out some copies. If you have any questions, I'm sure he can address them. If not, we'll do our best to answer. Carl?
Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Jim, Mr. Chadwell, Mr. Newcomb, members of the board. I think you've seen an electronic copy of this report if you were interested, but I've got a paper copy for you here. Because I'd like to go over some of the highlights with you and then see what questions you might have. These are the audited statements for this last fiscal year ending August 31st. And I'd like to start on page 24. Page 24 is the summary page for the primary or major funds that give you an overview of the revenue and the expenditure results for last year. Anything not required to be flowed through a separate fund flows through the general fund. So that left column of page 24 is where the majority of the district's funds flow through. And you see going down that column, total revenue of $186 million, total expenditures of $172 million. Bottom line, a $10.7 million addition to fund balance last year, which is excellent, which increased the fund balance from $35.7 million to $46.4 million. You really needed a year like that because for years now, your fund balance has been below what I consider to be the minimum you need to be striving for, which is 25% of annual expenditures for 3 months. At this 46.4, you're now over that 3-month or 90-day threshold. You're approaching 100 days. You're at 27%. So that's excellent. You know, that's where you need to be in order to have, I think, a sufficient reserve on hand. Revenues were up $17 million last year. State funding was up. There was a double, 2 annual payments of SHAR's Medicaid funding that came in last year because the government got caught up on that. And expenditures were only up $3 million this last year. So that's where you made up ground as far as being able to add to your fund balance. And if you turn to page 27, you'll see how those actual results compare to the initial budget you adopted and then the final amended budget for the general fund. And again, toward the bottom, you had projected to add $4.3 million to fund balance, but again, looking at that variance column, state revenue came in even more than what was being projected toward the end of the year. And then, of course, it's hard to hit expenditures right on the nose. Expenditures were $4.8 million below budget, but they were less than 3% below what you projected. So, you know, it's hard to get much closer than that without risking going over budget in a function which generates a letter from the TEA when they look at this report. So the general fund operation results were excellent last year. If you go back to page 24, going through the other major funds, the debt service fund, the middle column of page 24, bottom line added $1.5 million to its fund balance of $5.1 million. You see some large numbers flowing in and out toward the bottom. That was the remarketing of the Series 2011 bonds that were done last year to lock in a new interest rate on those. And then the capital projects fund next to that, you did sell a almost $40 million bond issue this past year, and most of that got spent last year. So you see really just $13 million of that fund balance left at the end of the year. And of course, I know you sold another bond issue since, I guess maybe it was last month. That's disclosed as a subsequent event in the report. And then on page 25 is the fourth and final major fund, which is the Child Nutrition Fund. Major fund basically means the volume of activity in the fund is large enough. It's got to be segregated out on this primary report. But the food service fund, of course, has done well for years now. you look at the bottom line, you only see a $15,000 addition to fund balance. Well, that $15,000 is after Aaron spent over $800,000 for 2 new serving lines in 2 middle schools this last year, and after $575,000 of indirect costs were transferred out to the general fund. So the child nutrition profit was well over $1.3 million again this year. And really, Aaron needs to spend money like that when he generates profit like that, because if you recall, there is a maximum amount of fund balance he can have in that fund. This $2,028,000 of ending fund balance he has is about $300,000 below the maximum he could have. And so really, as long as that program's going to run as efficiently as it is and as profitably, he's going to need to continue to find things to spend money on for improvements, capital equipment replacement, things like that.
What is it based on, the maximum? Is it a percentage of the revenue?
It's 25% of this $9.3 million of expenditures you see in that
So it's
column.
gonna, as it grows, it's gonna,
Yeah, as it grows, as the total expenditures grow, the 25% grows. But
okay.
it calculates this last year to, to 2.3 million something, and he's at 2,028,000. Okay, those are the primary funds. All the other funds of the district, there's another 20 or so, which account for the Title I funds, the IDB special education funds, the state textbook allotment, various local grants that you receive that don't run through the general fund. Those are all accumulated in this other funds column. There's really nothing of interest to point out in that back in the report. But a couple other things I want to point out. Back on page 87 is the summary property tax schedule for the year. And the primary reason I point that out is because you had a really excellent year tax collection-wise this last year as well. And it shows up in a couple different ways. That left column on page 87, you came into last year with $2.9 million of delinquent taxes owed to the district. That right column, you ended the year with $2.6 million. And if you look just at the last line going across, which was the levy and collections this last fiscal year, and put a pencil to it, the district collected 99.50% of the current year levy last year as of August 31st, which is excellent. I usually see figures close to 99, more in the 98% something range in other districts. 99.5% of the dollars were received last year, which again is excellent. The back of the report, beginning on page 91, is the single audit section. If you recall, because the district receives well more than $750,000 in federal funds, there is additional compliance audit work that's required to be done. This year, the 2 programs that compliance work was done on by us was the Title I program and the IDB special ed program, as far as looking to see if the particular requirements that come with that grant were adhered to. That section leads up to page 99 and page 100, which details the over $10 million of federal funds that the district received this last year in order to help run and manage the district. There's 3 primary programs. It's the child nutrition program, the Title I, and the special ed that comprise the bulk of that $10 million. All right, in the very middle of the report, just a couple of these footnotes I want to point out to you on page 48 and 49. There's about 30 pages of footnotes that basically give more detail about various aspects of the district's finances. But on page 48 is the summary or the detail schedule of the district's long-term debt. Just to make you aware, or you can see in one place, the various prior year bond issuances that are still outstanding, the amounts owed on those. And then on page 49, there's a note disclosure of the capital leases that have been entered into the past few years, primarily for the purchase of technology equipment and the balances that are owed on those as well. And then last but probably least as well, on page 17, I need to point out to you this government-wide consolidated financial statement, simply because you need to know it's in here. It's not a statement that really should be of concern to you. The fund financial statements are what you budget, what you manage, what you should be concerned about as far as their activity and their status. But this consolidated financial statement, of course, you know, has been required for a number of years. This combines all of those funds we just looked at, the capital assets that the district owns, the long-term debt that the district owes, and this is the statement that throws in the district's proportionate share of the TRS pension liability and the TRS healthcare liability for retirees. The reason I pointed it out is because if you look at the statement, you see the bottom line is very ugly. It's a negative $108 million. Virtually every district your size and larger and even smaller have negative bottom lines because of those TRS liabilities that would have to be recorded. There is about a net amount of about $120 million of liabilities that are in this statement due to those accounting requirements to record those liabilities. If you factor that out, the bottom line would be a positive $12 million. And more importantly, that next to the bottom number, the unrestricted net position, which is a number the TEA does look at, would be a positive $48 million. Because one of the factors in the first rating is that unrestricted net position positive or negative? And the TEA factors out those TRS liabilities when making their calculation. So you are very positive in the bottom line on this statement, basically if you ignore these TRS liabilities that have to be recorded. So overall, I think it's a very excellent looking financial statement for last year. We always have a few things to nitpick with Jim and Jane, and this year with Rob, though I couldn't blame Rob for anything this year that we talked about in our audit exit conference. I guess he'll be on the hook next year for anything. But
Just blame it on Jim, because he won't be here.
yeah. But really, no major issues that came up in the audit. The compliance and internal control reports in the back disclose no exceptions, no issues at all either. So if you got any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for your work.
Okay. Thank you.
Concludes finance report, and we move to operations. Mr. Welch, construction update.
The first thing we look at on our construction update will be Copper Creek Elementary, and this is just an overview of the site, and you can see the roof line, how that's come together, and the overall site package of it. They're doing brickwork in the academic area, and also on the second story you see they're framing up that area, and they've enclosed in the library on the far left. You see the gentleman working on the steel framing and installing the windows on the second floor. This is on the interior part of the administration area. Just again, framing all that area up, getting ready for the sheetrock. The ladder right there is the only way to get up to the second floor as of last week, so they still need to bring the staircase in there. Didn't quite fit correctly, so they had to send it back to get some readjustment. So we didn't take any pictures upstairs on that deal. And then on the far right, you see some of the framing going on, and you see the sheetrock, and you can see some of the work above the ceiling with the HVAC duct. And then walking into the cafeteria toward the gym area, you see that the tile is already up in that area, so you almost see, again, different stages, but this is the one, you know, that to me takes the longest, and it's already that far ahead. It's your kitchen, all the things that go in that, and so we're moving right along in that area. Picture of the library. By now the glass is in, and then in the kitchen you see all the tile that's on the wall, and then the gentleman there, he's opened up those boxes, that's the quarry tile for the floor. What you don't see on the bottom left is the gym. So that is built off-site because of the tornado shelter, and then it gets brought on-site and erected in that manner. So it is behind about 8 weeks in that area, so that will be some challenges as far as finishing up on May 22nd. It'll probably knock us to the middle of June just on that certain area. So I wish it was just as easy as putting the walls up, but there's some brickwork and things that go involved in that. So it's really a separate building within itself, but
Are they tied into the other one, or is it a freestanding, since it's now a tornado shelter?
it's tied in, but it stands alone. So if the F5 tornado was to hit that site, that building would be left.
What was left?
That would be what would be left, yes. And the door on the left, that's into the library setting over there. And then the top one is the columns for the bus loop and the canopy that will go in that area. Before I move on to Boswell, any questions about Copper Creek? Biggest deal is the storm shelter, keep that progression, make sure that because right now it's off-site, so POG is having to make visits there to make sure that they're actually meeting their timelines off.
Bringing in the whole wall, I mean, is it
Yes.
like those old tilt wall buildings they used to put up where they?
That's what it is. So, but every little outlet, everything has to be rated for wind. So you get one shot at getting it right, so it is very detailed on our
Is everything
standard.
else on schedule?
Mhm.
Thus far, that's
Yeah.
okay.
You know, it jumps from week to, I mean, from month to month, it'll go a week here, a couple of days here and there, just depends on the weather. But in general, as we catch up, a little rain hits us there, but nothing that would not stop the furniture going in the middle of May. But the storm shelters, we'll have to watch that. At Boswell, you can see that they're working on the new site. They've excavated the dirt and moved to hit bedrock. Don't have to go very far to Boswell to hit bedrock. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. But the two bottom pictures shows how students now have to get to the dance cheer facility. So they walk through a couple gates that we've opened up, and then we've secured the other one with a chain link fence. So they have an area where there is no construction going on, but it was kind of a little bit, had to show them where to go, basically. So still on schedule on this project. Still in design on the other phases of it that will be coming to you in the next month or so on different phases. Any questions about Boswell? One thing about Boswell that we've been looking at the stadium bleachers, the grandstands on the home side. For right now, we have in the reserved area, we have bench seating on the backs to move that to a seat backing. So there's really not a retrofit to that. The biggest thing, when you're at a venue and you walk by somebody and they have to get up, you notice how tight that is from the seat to the ledge. Everybody has to kind of squinch. You have to have 33 inches in that area. Right now, to move in and put a seat in there, you need a minimum of 33 inches. Right now, we only have 30 for the bench back, which is fine, but when you put a seat on there, you have to increase the tread. So you get one shot at doing it. You do it up front, or you don't really do it at all. So to consider that, we'll have to move forward with it now, or not do it. Eagle Mountain High School, not really an issue. It'd be the same as Boswell. You're starting from scratch on that, from that standpoint. But you get to Saginaw High School and Chisholm, that becomes a bigger problem when you look at that because it's just the tread. So, and you have to expand that. So it's roughly, when you look at the amount of seats you have in there, it's roughly around $140 a seat when you look at the total cost. So we'll keep studying that and get you more information on that.
You can get more room though, you're saying that if you put the seats in, it's that, not that you can't because you don't have enough room, you would just lose some seating capacity?
If we move to a seat back, we have to have 33 inches. No one will install on a 30-inch tread. And they do a retro, but it looks like a retro. It looks like they put some type of fastener and put a kind of one of those seats you buy. It's cushioned, that you buy sporting place, or sometimes they sell them. So it doesn't look very good, and plus it's sitting on top of the existing bleacher. So,
There's not enough room to get by, having sat up there for 30 years, there's not enough room there, so whatever we have to do to get it wider and you know, chair backs would probably be good.
The question comes in, I think what Mr. Welch is saying is that if we do that building and we have Eagle Mountain, then we have 2 schools that can't be retrofitted. And so it's just the acceptance of that, because those, unlike especially Chisholm Trail and really Saginaw too, those stadiums are acceptable in terms of all other elements. They just simply wouldn't be able to be renovated to have the same kind of seating. And so we try to, you know, we don't always have to can't do everything always the same. We try, we endeavor, but we wouldn't there unless we did a complete stadium rebuild on the
on the home
bleachers.
side.
On the home side.
Okay.
So we don't have to make that decision tonight. It's just something to think
Yeah.
about and to determine how we want to do that.
Baseball, softball, just kind of looking at what I want to share there is we did replace with the money we had left in that project for the fencing in the outfield. If you went by there over the last 10 decades, it's been beat up, and so we were able to go ahead and put that in there. So they have the new surface and the new fencing on the outfield, or on the baseball and softball, and that was finished up a couple weeks ago. Just other projects, kind of a recap. We're still working on the security projects. And then on the turf projects, we were not able to get to this board meeting with the information we needed to get the pricing. The weather, Mother Nature did not cooperate with that. So we're still slated for next month to come to the board with hopefully at least the first 4 fields, and that will be the middle school fields, and we can get started on that. And as soon as those are completed, then we'll go into the 2 auxiliary fields at the 2 high schools and hopefully Wayside. So it'll be a 4-3 type phasing in that, and still looking for the August finish on that second phase. So hopefully we can get all those reports in. On the tennis court resurfacing, we just have 3 of them currently right there that we're looking at. Track resurfacing, that's kind of some are resurfaced, such as the high schools will need a structural spray. We're looking at Creekview and Highland. They're going to need more than that. They're probably going to have structural work done on those. If not, we're still going to have a crack in about a month. I mean, not a month, but a year from now. So a lot more expense on those 2. And hopefully next month we'll come with the carpet VCT replacement at these schools right here. So you notice that's a large amount of work to get done. For the calendar year, I mean, obviously we'll start before summer begins, and then probably will drag on a little bit after that, just the amount of schools that we're trying to touch in that area. And we're still working with the central office design. We're getting further and further. And we're working with VLK to get a kickoff meeting on Eagle Mountain High School. So a lot of work going on, a lot of meetings. Any questions on any of the construction?
No. On to the district land report.
Okay. There we go. Thank you, Kurt. Going over our district sites, first one we have on here is by Saginaw High School. We have 2 school sites here, roughly basically the same size. You have the one that there's a red dot, and you have the little triangle in purple or blue, whatever that is. You can see where it's mowed. So they're roughly over 30 acres, right at 31 acres on both those sites. So either one could be a middle school or not middle school or elementary site. The one that's red that has the woods there, that is part of our property. So you can kind of just see just south of those woods, that little road through there, that's pretty much our southern boundary on that one. So. And we have a future elementary site on the Marine Creek piece of property, along with the future central office location. So it'll be up closer to the north and kind of split the difference there. That area. missed one. Oh, sorry. There's elementary 17 that we're working on. That's the Lake Country site, and we're still working on a little access point on that land to the east of it. And then we have Eagle Mountain High School, and we have a middle school site and a future elementary site. Roughly, on the high school, middle school site, there's 135 acres, and on the red dot, we have roughly 13.5 acres for that elementary and north of us. But you can see in relationship on the, you can see the purple where the maintenance facility is. We're still gonna need an elementary site south of that area, so we're working through that with a developer. And then we'll need one more to the north up there, northwest of, toward those other housing developments. So we'll continue to work through that. But as far as land, that's our school sites.
We have 4 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and a high school, if I counted right.
2 elementaries,
4. So you got 1 at Eagle Mountain, 1 at Saginaw, Eagle Mountain,
and we have 4 currently that are green sites.
yeah.
And then we have 2 middle school sites, which covers us on the middle
That'll be
schools.
good. And the high school.
And then
So,
we're under
We just need
negotiation.
elementary. We just need more elementary. sites.
Right, and right now, we're under negotiation on 2 other sites currently. So after that, it's gonna be pretty, we'll be real right at it.
So we bought all of that with the bond money, so the only 2 sites we'd still be purchasing, are they currently in the bond for the other elementary sites? Refresh my memory on that.
I believe, yes,
So we've already,
there's land for land acquisition in the
for the
bonds.
bond, okay.
Bond program.
All right.
When's any projection on the road that's gonna be coming through out by the new high school to extend boat club or whatever we're gonna call it?
Well, the developer will start on Business 287, and he's gonna move from that over to close to Lake Point. And so that is Eagle Mountain Parkway. I think I saw it on a map somewhere. So eventually that turns, and we'll run into Boat Club, but right now it won't. I mean, so they've had to connect it. Usually they don't connect in the beginning because you have to have 2 openings. But coming off where they're having to come off, there's no access point there. So they were forced to spend more money on their road connection versus there's no houses on the ground yet. So that one's working to the south. And we have a map of that one, and then we'll build our part of Boat Club Road, or whatever it's called, 1220 North or Boat Club. Then you have the city of Fort Worth that has a park just south of us. They'll have to build their part of it. Then the developer will have to tie that in as they have more homes moving, again, from Business 287 moving west. In the end, it'll move fairly quickly. You'll be able to get from point A to point B, but until those east-west connectors are there, it'll be difficult. The other one is Heritage Trace. So part of the development to the south is building that Heritage Trace. So they'll build that. There's development on, so you still have to cross the railroad when you go over Business 287 to tie future into Heritage Trace. And so that's pretty difficult to do. They're gonna have to probably lower the train tracks, and they're also not level. So it's a developer, it's a major undertaking to make that happen.
Railroading.
And just to underscore, this is, as he's discussing, describing, it's a developer-driven, all these are developer-driven, but also there are no bond funds in Fort Worth right now approved for any of these projects. There may be something through TxDOT for those related to TxDOT or county, but nothing from the city at this point. So the city doesn't go to another bond for a couple of years. And if y'all noticed in the paper, there's been a lot about development north of the loop, especially east of this area on Bonds Ranch. And so this is going to be a real critical area moving forward. And we have met with the city officials to explain this school's coming, ready or not, here it comes to 2024, and that the connectivity is really important, and the amount of traffic on Boat Club will significantly increase if there's not a secondary access point to that direction. So there's been discussion, we just don't have direction from right now from the city about any support of finishing that road all the way down. so.
No county, it's all city.
Bond Ranch is partially county.
Yeah, there's some county work on Bonds Ranch Road that we believe that we'll have to engage them on.
We'll have to put a light, most likely there at the high school site, but having turning lanes. But right now, it's not planned to be a 4-lane road from Boat Club on to the east. There was something in the Fort Worth bond about a 4-lane road on Bonds Ranch, but that's east of 287 business. That's not in this area, so we'll have to put turning lanes and things to make that wider in that area to support it.
East of Business 287 or 287?
East of Business 287, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Welch, or is it 287? The 4-lane?
Yes, east
Yeah.
of 2. And Heritage Trace is the big, for us to connect our middle school, like in Comanche from Prairie Vista to move over there, it's gonna be Heritage Trace. So you have the one at Business 287 that needs the railroad, and then you have the one that's connecting Waters Bend South to Copper Creek. So both those housing, the road's just dead into the railroad. So at some point, that'll have to be addressed, and that'll again help east-west connectors. Not that Copper Creek's going to go to the new high school, but that needs to be connected for pathway.
Glad you clarified that. All right.
Any other questions about that?
We thank Mr. Jones. All right, come on.
Good evening, just a quick update on transportation. It is that time of year to consider the renewal of the agreement with Gold Star, and you have in your board packet their proposed renewal agreement. It outlines or includes a 7% increase over current, and basically what the 7% will cover is a small increase in drivers' wages, which we've talked before as far as just to try and remain competitive within the market. It's a difficult position to fill and keep filled or whatever, so this will allow them to keep, maintain marketability. The other portion is the second half of, we were going to have 40 buses replaced over the 2-year period. This is the second half of that, so we'll have 20 new buses to replace several that are aging out in our fleet. And you can see there the capital outlay for the 20 buses is about $2 million. So with what portion of at $447,000 that they're asking us, they were just really asking us to help offset it. But they are definitely taking the larger brunt of that investment. So this is just a report item, just an update. But we will be bringing this back as a recommendation probably next month, if not in March. But the recommendation will be to renew with Gold Star for the final year of our agreement. Any questions?
This would be the final year that it can be extended.
Yes, sir. This is
Last
the
year.
last
Okay.
one.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's currently 5:58 PM on January 21st, 2020. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in a closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act: 551.071, consultation with board's attorney; 551.072, purpose of deliberating a purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property; 551.074, purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, reassignment, duties, or discipline of a public officer or employee; 551.075, purpose of deliberating regarding deployment or special occasions for security; and 551.082, considering the discipline of a public school child or complaint or charge against personnel. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on January 21st, 2020 at 7:02 PM. I'm now consider the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for the decorations around the room. We appreciate them very much. We especially like the little pictures there of Daughtry and Marilyn out there in the back being Superwoman. Mr. Bose over there. So we appreciate all the thoughts and gifts that you've given us. To start our meeting off tonight, we're going to have the presentation of colors by JROTC.
three, four. One, two, three, four. Hot, 2, 3, 4. Hot, 2, 3, 4. Holy Lord. Halt. Ready. Post. Harry. Post. Grease and post.
All right, good evening. Thank you for letting Saginaw Elementary come and lead the opening ceremonies tonight. I have 3 of our fabulous 5th graders with us tonight. The first is Riley Wade. He is the son of Natasha and Troy Richard. Riley has a passion for learning through hands-on experiences in both science and social studies. Riley also plays baseball. Riley takes on active roles in the school and community. He has participated in the spelling bee and was on the UIL oral reading and chess team. He enjoys supporting his Fossil Creek baseball teammates. Next we have Michaela Sanchez. She is the daughter of Grace and Brandon Owens. Michaela enjoys reading and math, and she also enjoys challenging herself as an artist and an athlete outside of school. Michaela enjoys being involved in school activities such as choir, UIL, and the Kindness Club. She is motivated to work hard in hopes of one day becoming an eye doctor. And then finally we have Xavier Gonzalez. He is the son of Jose Gonzalez and Isabel Torres. Xavier enjoys all of the subjects, but writing is his favorite. He enjoys pushing himself as an athlete for the Diamond Hill football team. Xavier enjoys trying new things to better himself as a person and as a learner. He has participated in the spelling bee, Kindness Club, and he is interested in trying out for a UIL academic team this year.
Before we begin, we would like to take a minute to thank you for your dedication to the students of Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. We appreciate you volunteering your time to help launch the next generation. Happy School Board Appreciation Month.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you for letting us lead the opening ceremony tonight.
Order. Others. Order. Others. Ready. Post. Forward. Arch. Hot. 2, 3, 4. Hot. 2, 3, 4. Hot. 2, 3, 4. Hot. 2, 3, 4.
Before the ROTC leaves, we want to make a special recognition to them. If you don't know, this program is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. It's led by Captain Jeff Gross and Master Sergeant Walter Romhild. They have done a great job, and they've actually, I don't know if it's usual or not, but we've had the exact same military commanders in this program for all 10 years, which I don't know if that's common or not, but it's great.
It's a great place to stay.
Yeah. that benefited, of course, students now and also students in the past. I know we have students in the room that have been a part of this program and are very proud. I know I'm very proud. A lot of times, of course, we see y'all at events like this or football games, but also I have the luxury of seeing you in class sometimes, and I know this is something that y'all do a tremendous amount of work, students, to do what you're doing today. A lot of things on the weekends and evenings, and we're just very, very proud of you, and you make the district proud, but also our country. Thank you.
Thank you all for all your
What a special treat to have them here for Board Appreciation Month. We loved having seen them and being able to bring them in and also recognizing them for the service that they bring to our district and our community. So now on to recognitions. As you can tell, it is Board Appreciation Month. Each year, the governor and Texas Association of School Boards designates January as School Board Recognition Month.
Is your mic working?
I think so.
Okay.
Is it working? Can you hear me now? Okay. The theme for this year's celebration is Launching the Next Generation, which is where you'll see rocket ships and everything around. That's where that comes from. As part of this recognition in our district, each school does adopt a board member to whom they show appreciation throughout the year. I hope you've had the opportunity to go to events on campuses and be celebrated throughout, obviously, our meeting here, but throughout the whole school year. So we have a whole list of things, of critical roles that school board members do in our board packet here, but rather than me reading them, we have prepared a special video that we think might explain it a little bit better. So let me see if I can get those two pulled up.
January is School Board Recognition Month. But do you know what the board really does? Let's take a look.
This meeting is called to order. What has the board done this year? We made sure the very best teachers were hired and that students have awesome classrooms, schools, and buildings.
We also listen to parents when they have questions or concerns.
And make sure we are on the budget.
Also have a combined 138 hours of professional development.
It's been a good year so far, but there's still a lot of work to do. Thank you, board member this month. They are committed to fostering a culture of excellence for all students, staff, and families in EMS ISD, and working hard to launch the next generation into success. This is Lily West signing off and saying thank you, EMS ISD Board of Trustees.
We had so much fun making that video. Oh, they were adorable. Want to thank our students from Remington Point and Bryson Elementary who came and helped us out with that, along with their parents and the principals for helping to coordinate that. And they were hilarious in here. They brought their big suits, and I had one of them had pants with it too. And he goes, "I just want you to know these aren't my pants." I said, well, I kind of thought so, but I'm glad to hear that. So it was a lot of fun to do. I also want to thank and acknowledge Chris Hill, who produced that video for us in our communications department. So we were excited to do that, and on behalf of the communications department, we join our schools, our departments, and our leadership in thanking you for your dedication, commitment, and service. To continue our school board appreciation, I would like to ask Allie Surface to join me up here at the podium. It is with much appreciation that we'd like to recognize a very important retired trustee through our work with the EMS Education Foundation program. Allie, would you present the award?
Sure. Good evening, Board, President Newcomb, Dr. Chadwell. I'm honored to present an award for a retired trustee through the cooperation of current trustees, volunteers in the community, and we celebrate this hometown hero through the partnership with Modern Woodman Fraternal Financial, so thank you for allowing us to do this. Sarah Hollenstein shared fiduciary responsibilities beginning in 1997. We know that a school board begins planning for beneficiaries' children on the day that they're born, when you're sworn in, and also for graduates that same year. This means if she began planning for the future of students in 1997, then her educational influence on the district encompasses thousands of competitive professionals in their 40s today. And our direction for a district of excellence was set by the foundation she and her collaborative team began that many years ago. Sarah, former EMS ISD trustee president with a 12-year service record to the leadership of our district, is shy when receiving acknowledgement. She is one that, when recognized, begins to quickly speak about others and accolades to deflect the attention of her service. When I asked her how she felt when it was announced that the Career and Technology Center was going to be named after her, she talked at length about the professionals in the district that she felt were more deserving of the name recognition than herself, and even quipped that her son teased her about the technical part of HCTC. She was a little embarrassed and said that she never did anything for accolades and is humbled by this as something left to posterity. She's very deserving of the name recognition and so much more. During her 12 years as a trustee, she served on several statewide educational leadership committees, receiving her Master's of Trustee certification through TASB, served on numerous district committees, and held the first trustee liaison position for the Education Foundation. She also spearheaded the birth of the EMS ISD Council of PTAs as a body to serve local parent-led boards in the district. Her commitment to service for not only her community, but our great state of Texas is commendable. Sarah and her husband own a trucking company originated in 1997 called Norco Corporation. This company brings jobs to many families in our district and supporters of our community they support our community through charitable contributions as well. It is very important to her that everyone in the community is supported through education and immediate resources of aid. Her service to the community began when her children were very little, taught by a school teacher, Ms. Liz Hatley, first grade, I believe. Liz said that she knew early on that Sarah was devoted as a parent and an advocate for children. Sarah has accomplished great victories in elections to many organizations throughout her time in our district. PTA president, PTO president, president for the Saginaw Chamber of Commerce, serving on various boards and organizations throughout her time, such as Safe Haven, Fort Worth Boys Club, Tarrant County Emergency Service District, and the Northwest YMCA, just to name a few. All of these won by election by her peers, but has said that her greatest victory comes from her love with her family. She has 4 children, Ben, Chris, Alex, and Ellen, and with the birth of the newest Hollenstein just 1 month ago, she and AG dote over now 5 grandchildren. I wanted to just touch on HCTC, beginning with the seed she planted years ago, when career and technology admittedly was not part of her vernacular, but the vision of that education was present. She believes career education is very instrumental to public education. She took note of a void she saw when her kids were in school in the 1980s and revisited again a decade later and noticed the same voids. She recalls a conversation with her son, Chris, while at the College of Engineering at A&M. He talked about the rigor and how he and his classmates struggled during that time. But his most notable concern was not for himself so much, but for the friends that he graduated high school with. They weren't attending college programs, and his worry was that a high school diploma was not enough. They needed more. Through her belief that kids are not cookie-cutter learners, she was committed to a diverse student success pathway and has demonstrated that through the decades of support for all these areas in education. Together, she and her husband, AG, enjoy seeing their grandchildren benefit from the many advantages EMS ISD students are given because of her governance of district planning, though she gave Ed Wilkie, Dana Eldridge, and her husband most of the credit for that. That again points to her humble mindset. She planted the seed of career and technology programs through an evolution of thought around her own kids' experience and her professional vantage point in the community. She was bold in her stance for both concentrated college prep and career readiness, and that is the definition of a successful trustee for public schools. Committed to the school board and a dedication to her community makes her our first choice for a hometown hero through the School Board Recognition Month.
Here at EMS ISD, we know the value of leadership and district planning and are deeply appreciative of Sarah Hollenstein's service. We are pleased to announce that her generosity to this community is recognized through this Hometown Hero Award. Sarah?
She's here.
Come on up. She's right in front of me. Come on up. Sarah, the EMS Education Foundation joins us here at the district in honoring you for heroism in our community. We'd like to present this recognition to you in grateful appreciation for all you've done for public schools. Please accept this special plaque, courtesy of Modern Woodman. Thank you. On behalf of all the trustees, educators, and students, we thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
I just want to thank you and the Education Foundation. Thank you to the board for approving this. Listening to Allie, I should be really tired. And once again, I'm very humbled, very honored, and thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
This concludes our recognitions.
All right. That brings us to special introductions. Dr. Chappell?
Yes, sir. Tonight we're going to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Rob Welch. He's a proven leader in public school finance and has been a lifetime resident of the Fort Worth area and doesn't live very far from where we are right now. He brings 22 years of experience in his new role and has worked prior to now in Grand Prairie ISD as the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. He also has worked in Carroll ISD as Assistant Superintendent for Financial Services and 6 years in White Settlement. He comes from a legacy of other public educators, including his father, and we're very pleased that he's in this area. He's a graduate of Brewer High School, so again, been in this area, but now he's in the right district now, and so we're happy about that. Anyway, pleased to have him here. For those of you that don't know, of course, we have still in the front row there, Mr. Jim Shealy. He's continuing to serve in his role of Deputy Superintendent of Financial Services. He'll be retiring this summer, and we'll say plenty of nice things when we can thank all of those up by the summer. They give each other a hard time a lot, and they're working very much in tandem right now, and so we're pleased to have you here, Rob. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard. All right, Sarah, this is a good time. We're going to go into action items, so you're welcome to stay. I know how you love board meetings.
Probably tired.
I
remember those days all.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we appreciate you and your family. Unless, of course, you want to stick around to conduct the public hearing for Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPRA by Dr. Parker. Let's see, Dr. Parker. Hold on, I think we have to do this formally. Let me get to
We have to be very formal on this one.
Yeah. At this time, on behalf of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD, I declare an open hearing on the 2018-19 Texas Academic Performance Report in compliance with Texas Administrative Code Title 19, Chapter 61, Subchapter BB, Commissioner's Rules on Reporting Requirements, Section 61.1022C, Texas Academic Performance Report.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, and let me say a personal thank you for your commitment and your work and service here in EMS ISD. It's wonderful to have you leading the way. As you can tell, I've reformatted our Texas Academic Performance Report for you based on the code that you just mentioned. And in this report, you'll find a streamlined process. Much of what has already been discussed in various reports is comprises TAPR, which you have in the board book. So we are required to state our accreditation. As you are aware, we received an 88, which follows the B rating for our district. In addition to that, you'll notice on the special education determination status, we meet all requirements. Moving into the next portion of the TAPR report, these are the campuses that received a distinction. I believe we had 32 last year and 32 this year. I do want to point out that Highland Middle School received a distinction in every area. It's to be commended on that. Greenfield received 5, and Saginaw Elementary received 4. So we're hoping to increase that across the board. Our goal is for every school to receive, elementary school to receive 2, high school and middle schools to receive 3. As part of the TAPR report, or TAPR, our campus improvement plan, which you received last month, has to have their goals. These are the 3 large goals that our campus improvement plan has. I introduced those to you in December. As you can see, they focus on student achievement, collaborative community, and a safe and nurturing environment, which these also align to our Aspire 2022 plan. In addition, we must report to you on violent or criminal incidents. However, if the number is low and would violate FERPA, we do not have to report anything, and so we are claiming non-disclosure due to the low numbers in FERPA. Policies must be reported on. Our new policies this year we have on trauma-informed care and threat assessment. We have to have those, and we've stated. In addition to that, the prevention lessons and presentations that we are supplying include the list you see here: bullying, suicide prevention, dating violence, substance abuse, vaping, and tobacco, reporting signs of child abuse, trauma-informed, and trafficking. The post-secondary Texas Public Institute performance must also be reported to the board. This is a report that states the number of students graduating in, it's actually a year behind, so it's 2017-18. And these are graduates who attended a public Texas institution. Either 2-year, I've listed the 2-year number. For example, on Boswell has 4-year and 2-year. The 4-year is first at 78, and then 148 who went to a 2-year university out of 384 graduates. That's 59% of our students from Boswell, 55% from Chisholm, and 57% from Saginaw attended a Texas public institution. Then you can see going across the number that received less than a 2.0, the number that received a 2.0 or 2.9, up to a 2.99, and then a 3 point and above. When I compared these to other districts in our area, I found that we basically fell right in the middle of everybody. We are most like Birdville in our comparison. So we're above on some and below on others, and it's quite interesting, but pretty well we trend with the other districts in the state, in this area. That is the summation of the required TAPR report for this year. Or do you have any questions? You have the full report in the board handbook. There's several celebrations. We've celebrated those throughout this fall as we received our accountability reports, and are excited about where we're going.
All right, at this time, the hearing is open to public comment. Please step to the podium if you wish to be heard. This time, the public hearing of the TAPR for the district is closed. Please be advised that the TAPR and this report will be posted on the district website for further public review. Thank you, Linda.
Next action item is to approve the 18-19 financial audit report.
I move we approve the 2018-2019 audit report.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz to approve the audit report. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Next is to adopt the order to call the 2020 school trustee general election. It's currently places 6 and 7, held by Liz Hatley and Donna Webb respectively, expire this year. And there's an adoption for order included with that.
I move we adopt the order of election for the trustee general election on Saturday, May 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Marilyn, to adopt the order of election. I'm just helping you out there, Mr. Shealy, so you're okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Next is the order of bids and proposals. Also, Mr. Shealy, there is one, an extension proposal for landscaping services.
I make a motion to extend the agreement with American Landscaping Systems, Inc. for landscaping services, lawn grounds maintenance for the first year option to expire May 31st, 2021. The estimated total annual based on last year's expenditures is $1,100,000. This total includes additional services beyond the scope of work.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Liz. Questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Shealy.
Thank you.
Consider the teacher's late resignation without good cause and proposed complaint to the State Board of Educators certification for abandonment of contract. Dr. Dawkins.
President Nickum, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. On Monday, January 6th, 2020, Mr. Michael Netherland abandoned his teaching position at Boswell High School. He informed Principal Nika Davis on Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, that he had found employment outside of the education field and that his last day would be Friday, December 20th, 2019. Mr. Netherland confirmed this to the district over the telephone on December 5th, 2019. In that conversation, he informed that the district may report his contract abandonment to the State Board for Educator certification. The administration does not believe that there was good cause for his resignation, which was untimely under Texas law. While he understands these consequences, Mr. Netherland confirmed that he would not be returning to work. The administration recommends that the board find that good cause did not exist under Section 21.105C2 of the Texas Education Code for Michael Netherland to resign his contract for the 2019-2020 school year. The board did not consent to his resignation, and that the board authorizes the superintendent to file a complaint with the State Board for Educator certification to seek sanctions for his abandonment of contract.
So moved.
Finally.
Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Tim. Any questions or discussion?
That was
Seeing-
second by Donna.
Okay. Second by Donna. Motion, you got that, Becky? Okay. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0.
Becky, do you have it as Tim and Donna a second?
For Paige.
Paige.
And Donna.
Tim and I did it at the same time, so either.
Paige. Paige made the motion. I tried to recognize Tim as a second, but Donna seconded the motion.
I did a proper
That's technically
second.
correct. Yes, you're correct, Donna. All right. A similar action item follows. I'll read it just to, so we know on action item 6F, consider a teacher's late resignation without good cause and propose complaint to the State Board of Educators certification for abandonment of contract. Dr. Dawkins.
On Monday, January 13th, 2020, Jonathan Shrivers abandoned his teaching position at Creekview Middle School. He informed Principal Miss Anthe Agnostis on Friday, January 3rd, 2020, that he had found employment outside of the education field, and his last day would be Friday, January 10th, 2020. Mr. Shrivers confirmed this to the district over the telephone on January 7th. In that conversation, Mr. Shrivers was informed that the district may report his contract abandonment to the State Board for Educator Certification. The administration does not believe that there was good cause for his resignation, which was untimely under Texas law. While he understands these consequences, Mr. Shriver confirmed that he would not be returning to work. The administration recommends that the board find that good cause did not exist under Section 21.105C2 of the Texas Education Code for Jonathan Shrivers to resign his contract for the 2019-2020 school year. The board did not consent to his resignation, and that the board authorizes the superintendent to file a complaint with the State Board for Educator Certification to seek sanctions for his abandonment of contract.
Second.
Motion by Liz, second by Donna.
I was just prodding.
Second by Tim. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Dawkins. Last action item on this part of the agenda is to accept the monetary donation to the Saginaw High School Girls Track and Field Team from Barron Contracting Firm, LLC. Let's at least let Mr. Shealy get to the podium this time.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Shealy, good evening.
Good evening. We're asking that you accept the donation of $1,500 from Barron Contracting Firm, LLC, for use by the Saginaw Girls, High School Girls Track and Field Teams.
So moved.
Motion by Tim, second by Marilyn. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We'll notify them and give them a receipt for the donation.
Thank you, Mr. Shealy. That concludes our action items and brings us back to our reports from the 5 o'clock session. We left off on Section D, Human Resources Report, and it's a 2020-2021 elementary staffing report. Dr. Dawkins, page 137.
And you do have the handout. We had apologized, there were a couple of corrections on that. The one for 2020-2021 elementary staffing 1. So in preparation for the opening of Copper Creek Elementary School this August, the administration is requesting the professional and paraprofessional positions on the attached staffing report. So the one that you're looking at, the elementary staffing 1, represents the annual salaries of these positions as of the start dates for the 2021 school year. The initial staffing, and that was attached as well, was approved at the October 28th, 2019, and that we attached that report for your reference as well. So those were the initial positions. So this would be the second round of positions that we have for Copper Creek. As you can see, if you would take a look, we are requesting specifically, I wanted to point out, 11 teachers at this time, and that is, we would look at being able to transfer some existing staff from the feeder schools to that. And so that's why it looks like I don't want you to think that there would only be 11 teachers at the school. So we're working on that, but I would request that of all of the positions listed, those would be the ones that we would like to have permission to post so that we could begin the process of working with staff on transferring.
Without objection? The next, do you have the next one too?
I do, yes, sir.
All right.
I'm up here for a while. All right, the next one, this is additional staffing, district-wide staffing. And so we have 2 positions that are bringing you tonight for consideration, and these would actually begin this school year 1920 and then carry into next year. So we've got, bring this one up, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Pardon me. There we go. All right. The Human Resources and Student Services Department, as our goal obviously is exceptional customer service for all of our stakeholders, employees, families, students, and community members. With the implementation of our new transfer process and some guidelines, we believe that additional staff support is necessary to ensure effective implementation and tracking of the new processes, and then also just to provide customer service in that one-on-one as parents have questions about that process. So we are requesting a student services coordinator who would facilitate the transfer requests, transfer inquiries, high school declarations, power of attorney requests, grandparent affidavits, and affidavits of legal residence. In addition, the position would meet with families upon request, serve as a student services liaison with campuses in these areas, and then also with athletics, and then provide campus support for attendance and truancy issues, and will serve as a grievance hearing officer when needed. And that position would report to the Director of Student Services. So that one we're bringing for consideration. Another position that we're bringing for consideration is one that Mr. Cleet Welch is in great support of. The Operations Department is currently managing over 30 bond projects, and that is a conservative number. Due to the large volume and complexity of projects, the administration is seeking to create the position of Director of Bond Planning and Construction. It would be working directly under Mr. Welch to oversee all phases of the bond planning. And this position would review the plans and design of bond projects, oversee construction, and supervise warranty work. So that request, we are, for your consideration, if you would give us permission for posting that one just in terms of the timeliness. So the bond planning and construction position, consideration to post on that.
It's coming out of the bond fund?
It's coming out of bond,
Out of the
yes, sir.
INS fund.
Right. It's a bond fund position.
Without objection? No objections? Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dawkins. Next is the early literacy report. Angela Kennedy with help. You starting, Stacy?
I'm starting.
Leading us off? All right.
Lead us off. Good evening. How are y'all? Thank you for having us here tonight. We're excited to be bringing you a report from Curriculum Instruction. This is something kind of new that we're doing periodically throughout this year. So we thought we would start out and update you on some things that are going on in early literacy. Something new that we have been working on is the implementation of a new way that we're assessing our students. And we started off by looking at data, and when we're looking in terms of student achievement, just across the board and looking at literacy and student achievement and across the board in ELA. And when you're looking at data overall, we know that everything starts at the beginning. And so we look back, when you go back historically, and looking back in 2017 and 2018, we really took a hard look, and we thought that we really needed to look at the way that we were assessing students in terms of their progress. And at that time, we were using a system called DRA. And at that time, things really were looking at measuring students' levels of reading in terms of a number. And you're on a level 4. And you made it to a level 6 or a level 8. And really, we looked at what does that really mean? And so we had 3 schools at that time who were looking at a different way of assessing students in terms of their reading levels. And so they started using a system that Angela will tell you a little bit more about shortly. But we really were doing some other things while that was going on. And we started looking at also at professional development in terms of how we were looking at supporting our teachers at kindergarten and first grade. And so at those grade levels, we took an approach in really helping teachers learn what does a kindergarten classroom look like? What does it take to set up a first grade classroom? And we spent a lot of time using our specialists, Carlin Briley and Angela Kennedy, our ELA elementary coordinator, and spending time and investing that time in setting up teachers' classrooms, showing them what those model classrooms look like, and really helping them set up that classroom environment and those foundation principles of early literacy in those classrooms. And so in that time also, we developed a district-wide assessment committee, and with the help of Dr. Jones leading us and working with us, and we put together a district-wide committee made up of principals, teachers, coaches, instructional specialists, and we looked at a variety of ways that we could look at measuring our students' reading levels. And so all that was going on 2 years ago, and we came together and we came to a consensus on we really needed to utilize a different way that we look at students' reading levels. And so we came up with a new plan, and that was called the Benchmark Assessment System. And in that, we took a new approach. We also knew down the line we were looking at vision. And so as we moved into 2018 and 2019, we knew that shortly we would be adopting new English Language Arts TEKS in kindergarten through 8th grade, which would also mean new resources. And so we knew that we needed to look at alignment. So all these things are moving in place all at the same time. And we were also implementing a new way to measure students' reading levels. And so we knew the importance of alignment was in place and that we had to keep in mind, what are we really looking for? And so we knew that at this point, that we had to focus on, we're not just happy with a number or a letter, that we really wanted to stick to the mission of our district, and that was thinking of what we needed for each and every student. And we knew that we had to focus on growth, that no longer was it just important to look at a letter, that we had to make sure that our students were guaranteed that we could stick to our focus of continuous improvement and look at how can we be focused on providing our students with instruction to ensure that they were making a minimum of 1 year's growth each and every year in their reading levels. Because if we can do that with our instruction, then that serves as the foundation of success and student achievement in all of our content areas. So that's where our work has been focused for the last 2 years. And so in that, we implemented that new system and continuing along with the professional development. And so that brings us to this year, where we're now implementing the new English Language Arts TEKS and all of our new resources, which you approved for us this past year, and continuing those levels of professional learning to support the implementation of those resources after we now have a year under our belt using that new system of measuring our students' reading levels. And we've had success, and we've seen great celebrations. So Angela Kennedy, our English Language Arts Elementary Coordinator, will tell you about those celebrations and what that implementation system looked like.
So the benchmark assessment system, as Stacy said, is really a better tool for really looking at growth beyond a reading level. And it's very comprehensive, and it also aligns better to our new standards and the state assessment system. And so we're working with our teachers. When you have a good tool, we can support our teachers to work in this responsive teaching cycle. So gathering data, but going more than that. So what are we seeing about what the readers can do, identifying goals that are next steps for the readers, and then taking strategic action in the classroom. And so we're trying to, there's a lot on this graphic, but we're trying to help them to, this is a district vision for literacy, how that strategic action takes place inside of the classroom. So it's a combination of whole group supports, small group supports, individual supports, and really that reflection and goal setting, building a community of lifelong readers and writers. And so when I've been through a lot of implementations in my years in the district, and so I have a lot to reflect on. And so when we were going to go ahead and roll out this new assessment system, we want to make sure our teachers who are on the front line were well supported. And so at the beginning of the last school year, we brought in a consultant, and she provided the initial training, you know, just the basics of how do you use this assessment. But building off of the work that those 3 elementary campuses had done in that prior year, we brought their literacy interventionists and their coaches and their teachers, and they offered breakout sessions so that our teachers that were going to be new to implementation, they got to hear more about the logistics and the behind-the-scenes work, you know, to avoid some of the hurdles and things that they might face. And so after supporting the teachers, I got the gift of being able to come to one of the principal lead meetings. My voice is kind of shaky, sorry, this is a new audience for me. 500 teachers, no problem. 10 of y'all. So I got to be at the principal lead meeting, and we brought in some of those teachers from those 3 elementary campuses, and we put them on a panel, and they took some questions and answers, and then the principals that were new to this, they rotated through some rotating sessions with them so that they could talk to the teachers and they could talk to the leaders of those campuses and really ask some questions, because they're gonna, when they have the teachers that are frustrated, they're gonna be the ones they come to, and when they have challenges, they're gonna be the ones that they come to. And so one of our principals that retired just recently, and she's been in our district for a long time, I remember her saying at this meeting, straight to the teachers, like, what do I need to do to get my staff to talk like y'all are talking right now and with the excitement that you have? And basically they said, you know, create the conditions and the support for us to get them results. Once they have results, then you're going to create a really great energy in your campus. This is an example of just kind of the things that the teachers were saying, and that prompted her to ask them that question. You have that there, so I won't read it. It'll be too long. So when you think about what this took and how this implementation might be different than others that I've experienced, is all in, like together we are stronger, and it takes top, down, and sideways to really create the why and the support networks. So in thinking about, talking about what Stacy was saying, you know, measuring our data differently. So we have been, you know, you group your data, this many students are reading at level, this many are reading above level, this many are reading below level, but if we're really about every student in our district, let's start looking at individually how they grow, and if they're achieving, we should own, all of us in our classrooms, that everybody gets a year. It doesn't matter where you start, but you get a year of reading development. And so we started filtering Excel, you know, reports a little differently. Now, it says middle to the end of the year because we didn't have a mandatory window at the beginning of the year, so we did some things to figure out, let's calculate a half a year to determine a whole year. So what you're looking at is when we did have the prior reading assessment, 57% of our kids only were getting at least a year or more. But when we went ahead and implemented the benchmark assessment system last year, that grew to 84%. Now, it's 2 different tools and 2 different sets of kids, but the method in which we're collecting the data is the same. So we're really excited to see, you know, this year and keep watching that. And the results were very similar in first grade and in second grade. And so it's really a closer eye on each kid and monitoring more frequently and really strengthening that professional learning community and being more responsive to the action that we take in the classroom. And so we're really encouraged by the results we're seeing so far. So then kind of to build on that is, you know, we started a new PD model, which is a Content Facilitator Academy. And basically 1 time of training, as wonderful as they all are that we present, it doesn't transfer to classroom practice. And so we're starting a model where you see the teachers more frequently and you support them and you build their skill set, and then they take it back and they have protected time at the campus to take that back to their teams. And so that's a new kind of format that Karen Miller has kind of helped us get into place. And so far the teachers are feeling very empowered by it. We're building leaders in them, and it's a different sense of urgency when you have to learn something and then go teach it to your teammates. And so it's really created a neat atmosphere. These are some of the strategies that we're using. So we can have strong individuals across our district, but until we have strong teams and strong campuses, then we have a strong system. So it's really this idea of, you know, building capacity in groups. This is, you know, there's so many strategies to choose from, but this particular strategy of the idea of building collective teacher efficacy, so building this belief that as a group we can do this, that effect size and in student results is enormous. It's one of the highest. And so there are several strategies we always think about, but this one we're kind of putting at the forefront to make all of our future decisions around moving forward.
I think the thing, when I look at this and you look back for the last 2 years, as a leader, you know that these things cannot take place without the work of many hands. And that's exactly what makes me the proudest of the work that's been done is because just as we put this together, you know, it takes people like Karen Miller putting this together with the continuous improvement model. It takes Mary Jones coming together with the work of assessment and Tricia Levitt coming together with the work of the data. And it takes the many campus leaders, and it takes teachers who started this, and the teachers coming, for teachers to teachers coming together to talk to a group of principals. And, you know, just as we come before you as a board, you know, that can be pretty scary for teachers to come off their campuses and talk to a room full of principals. But they did that, and they were passionate about it. And so for them to be able to come do that and be able to tell how passionate they were, and they saw that this worked, and that they stepped out and they were willing to do that, and just watch people come and embrace something new because they knew it was right. And that makes me very proud. And so we don't always see results as quickly as we would like, but I can already see that what is happening with our students, that something is working. And I feel like we are doing the work to lay the foundation where vertically that this will just continue to impact student achievement. So as far as moving forward, we will continue to use a system of continuous improvement to look at what's working and what's not working and make improvements when necessary. We will continue to invest in professional learning for our teachers and build teacher leaders so they can go back and be an extension of what we're doing in our department, because there are only so many Angela Kennedys that we can stretch. We've stretched her pretty far up to this point. We'll continue to use data to measure our progress and student data and help students set goals. And then we'll measure growth, and not just for a letter or a number, but strive for that minimum year's growth in our students' learning levels. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Summerhill. Thank you, Ms. Kennedy, for the report. That concludes the report section. We move now to routine monthly reports. Are there any questions on those? Hearing none, we'll move to action agenda item 9, review the 2020 board planning calendar. Dr. Chapman.
Okay, this is on page 251 of your packet. The next board meeting, we continue with budget status reports as we start to work on the 2021 budget. Also, we have our quarterly demographic report. We continue to see significant growth as we talked about earlier. We'll also have a construction update and more staffing reports. Next month, we'll also bring to you a pre-K report. We've been doing a lot of work in this area. As you know, there's requirements by the state level in order to move to a full-day pre-K program. Just to underscore the dollars that they did give, and the early childhood allotment does not pay for everything that's required. So we're being very careful on how we plan for that, and how we would plan for the growth of that program in the upcoming years. Finally, we just have some bids and proposals, and then act on the 2019-2020 budget amendment.
All right, thank you. Next, we move to the consent agenda for approval.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Donna. Questions? Concern? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Next is board president announcements, and I just want to say again, thank you for the decoration of the posters that are up. I know we're all looking forward to visiting campuses for Board Appreciation Week. We feel appreciated. Thank you for all the gifts in front of us, and we appreciate those. We may need some help getting to the car, but that's a good thing. I think somebody came in and their child's thought it was an auction and said, "Oh, Mommy, I want you to bid on this one." We appreciate, we feel appreciated, and we thank you for that. Dr. Chapel?
Yes, we have a few items on page 286. Our STEM showcase is on January the 23rd coming up. It's a great evening. If you've not attended that before, it's 5:30 to 7:30, and it's a real, very, very nice evening. We also have the EMS Athletic Hall of Fame banquet on the February the 29th, and so please visit with Brent if you would like to attend that event. We also have the open houses in March 3rd is the middle school open house. And please mark your calendars for March the 5th. If you can attend, we have the Education Foundation is hosting the Superintendent Circle of Giving breakfast at the Hollenstein at 8:30 in the morning. Finally, just thank you for all of your service. Y'all do a tremendous job. It's a very hard job, and people don't see the amount of work that you do in order to prepare for a meeting like this. There's hundreds of pages, sometimes even into the thousands, to prepare for this meeting, to make sure that you're leading the district in the right direction. I just appreciate all your service. These are just a few small things that we can do just to remind us that our work is for children. So thank you very much, and I just appreciate, again, all that you do on behalf of our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Chapel. Seeing that there's no further business to come before this board, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Donna, I recognize the senior board member as making the motion. Tim, would you like to second it?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Lee?